You've, I know, done some work also with African projects and something called the Cornucopia Project. Do you have any comments to make about
Yeah.
either of those?
Well, the Cornucopia Project was a food system planning effort that we did in the early 80s. It's more or less over now, but it was an effort to look at the whole American food system and the food systems of particular states, try to encourage states to produce more food eaten by people living in that region, more localized. A lot of the Cornucopia planning is now being implemented as state policy. We do, through the Rodale Institute, has very considerable efforts around the world, but our major effort now is in Senegal, where we have we call it a RARC, a Regenerative Agriculture Resource Center.
In Senegal?
In Senegal.
How long have you had it?
It's been there about 2.5 years, and it's in the town of Thiès. It's funded by the Pew Charitable Trust. And
Pew is in P-E-W?
Right,
Mm.
in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But we put some funding in ourselves, and AID participates.
And you send people over there?
Well, we hire Senegalese. The original manager was an American who we sent, but he's now leaving and being replaced by a Senegalese. And we, of course, have supervisors who go over. And my son Anthony is very much involved as a documentarian of that effort. But we're talking with, we're setting one up in Kenya, and we've been invited into Chad by AID. So if you come back in a couple of years, we may have 7 or 8 of them.
I hope you do. Essentially, though, what you're doing is helping them learn how to farm in different ways?
We're helping them to see more clearly their own resources related to agriculture and their own biological, cultural resources. It's focused on a lot on better use of manure. They have a lot of animals, but they don't use the manure effectively. And also different cropping systems. We're teaching them haymaking so that they can confine their animals, get the manure, and instead of letting them graze and have the manure wasted, make hay, feed the animals, get the manure, and put it on the garden. We've done a lot of, one of the major things that I've done in my life is introduce a new crop which apparently is successful, amaranth, and not too many people who ever do that in their lifetime.
No.
And amaranth is now considered to be like one of the most successful new crops out of America in the last 20 years.
Now, it's being grown in this country as well as other countries, isn't it?
Right. It's all over the world. The Chinese are doing more with it than anybody.
I was going to ask you about China, because you traveled there just last year, didn't you?
Well, no, I went there 15 years ago, but I'm going next year with a group.
That's it. I read about the plans for the trip.
But we had a visit from the CIA a few months ago who heard about our work with amaranth in China and wanted to know how to identify amaranth from their aerial photographs so they could count up how many tons of the stuff the Chinese are growing. But I thought that was proof that we're accomplishing something. And they told us that, well, USDA had a conference on new crops in Indianapolis last year. There were 400 people there, and the CIA had an agent in the audience. And they came here and said that of all the crops that were discussed, the only one they were really interested in was amaranth, because that was like out in the world, and they really felt they had to be able to identify it. The others were just tiny little experimental things. So that was very interesting.
Yes, it certainly is.